Cassandra Clare! Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the time that I met Cassandra Clare. And also I will be sharing some footage of the Queen of Air and Darkness tour at the Vancouver stop. So if you want to know all the details that Cassandra talked about, then keep watching! So yes, I met Cassandra Clare. It was marvelous. But before we get there, let me detail the journey of epic proportions that led me to this moment. I was just a nerdy girl back in 2008 looking for a good book to read when I stumbled across City of Bones. I'm just kidding, I'm not gonna take you through all that. But yeah, meeting her was quite the ordeal because she came to Vancouver on December 14th, which was a Saturday, so I thought, of course, I have no obligations, I will be there. It was a wristband event, which means only the first 400 people to buy a book the day of the event get in. I thought this was fine. I was prepared to line up at 7 a.m. when the store opened at 9. Then I found out I had to work. Adulting. I work as a teaching assistant, and so I was supervising exams on Friday and then grading exams all day Friday and potentially all day Saturday. So I started freaking out thinking, it's been like over a decade and I'm not gonna meet Cassandra Clare when she's coming to Vancouver. But then my friend Maria stepped up to the plate. Thanks, girl. And she volunteered to stand in line in my place and get us both tickets. I will be forever grateful. So that problem was solved. The event was at 3 though, so there was still a chance that I wasn't gonna make it. My professor, who supervises me and the other teaching assistants, was saying he thought we would be grading well into the evening on Saturday, and I was praying that was not the case. I did a similar job last year and we finished at noon on Saturday, so I was fingers crossing that it would not take that long. I have a stellar team. We ended up finishing at 11 a.m. on Saturday, which was awesome. So it was no big deal and I made the event with plenty of time. That said, in the middle of grading, I kept receiving messages from my friend being like, there's nobody else at the store. Why is there nobody else here? Turns out she went to the wrong location. It turns out it was at the very new Chapters, which has just opened downtown, rather than the big old one on Granville Street. If you've been to Vancouver, you'll know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. But she went to the old Chapters when it was downtown at the brand new one. So she went there bright and early, first one in line, wrong store. So she goes to the other one, and the store has been open for an hour at this point, so I'm getting messages. I don't know if I'm gonna get it. Oh my goodness. And I'm being like, but turns out she got it. So we got the tickets, I finished grading on time, we go to the event, but I've been grading all day and she's been sleeping because she got up super early to get our tickets, so neither of us had eaten, so we decided to quickly run to Tim Hortons, oh, so Canadian right now, and grab a quick bite, which we did because she ran into the store. I'm really bad at telling stories. Backtrack, she went into the store to ask what time we could line up for the event because it starts at 3. They told her 2:30. When we got there in the afternoon, I went in and asked the same thing, and the lady had no idea what I was talking about, well done, Chapters, and then said, I think it's just upstairs, so go up whenever you want. We just took that as, okay, it's fine, 2:30 I guess is when they let us sit down, so we went to get food, came back at like 2:15-ish, so still 45 minutes early. All the seats were taken. The floor was crammed, there was no place for us, so we kind of inched in along the wall, and so we were decently close, but like really on an angle. It was a little disappointing, but still okay considering we got in, we got the tickets, we were there, it was fine. Other people couldn't even get that close, and they were like behind the stage, like trying to peer in over barrier, so it was all good. Then the event is about to start, and this employee gets up and says, thank you so much for being here, but we need to ask you to stand up now because we're going to file people in based on wristband number. And we're like, what does this mean? Turns out that the wristbands had like a level, so level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that was based on when you bought the book, so who was first in line, and that was how they were seating people. So we were group 3, which turns out was one of the groups allowed to be seated. It was groups 1 to 3 that got a chair, groups 4 and 5 got to stand around the chairs, and then everybody else that just had to kind of cram in to the store so they could hear what was going on through the speakers. So I was super excited. Maria was slightly annoyed because she was like, I was there first thing, I was just at the wrong store. So we could have been group 1 right at the front. If you watched my Victoria Aveyard signing video, like I was right front and center. That's what we were aiming for. We did not get that, but we got a chair, so after all that, it was okay. So you will see in this footage I'm about to share, there are a couple of heads in the way, but I've tried to I was just on my cell phone, zoom in and find Cassandra amongst the heads, but I'm really short, and there are a couple tall people in front of me, so I apologize in advance, but I got a chair, I filmed the footage for you, so you can be there with me. So without further ado, here is the pre-signing discussion that Cassandra Clare was discussing. This was hosted by another author, whose name I've forgotten, which is a bummer because I wanted to plug her. She's got a debut novel coming out next year, which is super exciting, but I've forgotten now. I'm not sure if it's in the footage, so if it is, hopefully you can see it there. If not, maybe I'll look it up and put it in the description below. So here we go. The Queen of Air and Darkness tour discussion with Cassandra Clare.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. We're so excited to have you all here and to have Cassie and Nikki here. Nikki, who is the author of Crown of Feathers, coming out in February, will be doing the on-stage conversation with Cassie. And we are so excited to be here to celebrate Queen of Air and Darkness! So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Nikki and Cassie onto the stage.
Okay, is this thing on? All right. You guys, I am so excited to be here. I know you all are. Cassandra, welcome. Where to begin? So we all know Cassie. We all know the Shadowhunter Chronicles, right? I hope so. Yeah, I hope so too. How many books in are you now? 30?
Oh my god. Okay, so we have 6 Mortal Instruments books, we have 3 Infernal Devices books, and now we have 3 Dark Artifices books. So really bad at math, but I think that's 12.
A lot. That is a lot. Also Magisterium series.
Magisterium, we're just doing books that I have published. I counted the other day, 21.
Wow. Amazing.
I think I can retire now.
Yeah, I think you can too. I think you've worked extremely hard. Wait, I take it back. Okay, so I'm going to dive right in. Since we're talking about your whole series, which has been the hardest book to write for you?
I think actually Queen of Air and Darkness was probably the hardest. It's a really long book. It has a lot of different characters in it because I wanted to tell a story about a really big family. All of my other protagonists either have, mostly their parents are dead, or if they have a sibling, that sibling turns out to be evil. And so if you want to keep sort of changing things up, and so I decided, let's try a big family. None of them are evil, They just have the complicated kind of relationships that real life siblings do. And so I really love the Blackthorns, but it did mean telling the story of a lot of people. And so kind of following the threads of all the different characters, making sure they all had their, time and their plots, and at the same time kind of dealing with a really heavy and sometimes painful to write kind of political plot. There were many times where I just lay on the floor being like, just kill me, I want to die, this is never going to be finished. So
this is your longest book, right?
This is my longest, and hopefully the longest book that I will ever inflict on the Shadowhunter fans. But it definitely is my longest.
Do you find, do you write long initially and then have to cut back, or do you bulk up?
I write more, I'm not going to say skeletally because they're still longer, but I tend to do a quicker draft, and then as I kind of go through the book, I get to know more about what the book is and what it needs, and so the second and third rounds of revision I will usually add.
Okay. So if that was your hardest, which was your easiest book to write?
Oh man.
Or one maybe that just surprised you, that it came together, I'm sure ending a series is always very hard.
Ending a series is always hard. There were definitely books that were just really fun to write. City of Lost Souls was one of them, and also Clockwork Prince.
Okay. City of Lost Souls, you got to kind of come back.
I got to travel the world. I got Evil Jace, who I love. I'm a big fan of Evil Jace. And I got to kind of travel the world, and and just kind of was pure kind of adventure, and I really loved that. And I got to dig into the relationships that people were having, and ditto, I think, with Clockwork Prince as well. I got to really complicate things that were going on with Will and Jem and Tessa, and that was fun.
Okay, so this book, the final book in this series, is going to kind of change things moving forward for you. Did you always know this book was going to be that turning point, or did that kind of happen in the writing process?
No, I definitely knew, because I had the idea sort of for a long time that there would be these sort of 5 series. So I guess if you're going in chronological order, it would be Infernal Devices, then The Last Hours, which is actually coming next and is about Will and Tessa's kids. And then after that, we jump ahead to Mortal Instruments, then Dark Artifices, and the last series is called The Wicked Powers. And it kind of deals, it's the last sort of book of the Shadowhunter Chronicles as we know them, and so I wanted to set up a very different world that they would be facing in The Wicked Powers.
The end of the second book in this series, you probably knew that people were going to be really eagerly awaiting this last book and the fallout. Were you prepared to deal with that? Like, was that hard to write?
I figured people would be mad, but I didn't go on tour for the second book, so I was like, I physically hide in my house. It was really difficult. A significant character dies at the end of Lord of Shadows, and it was a really painful and difficult scene to write. It's not... All right, I guess I would say 2 things that I feel are sort of interesting, sort of things you learn about writing, or myths about writing. You don't kill characters because you hate them. That is not how it works. You kill characters when their death is necessary to say something about the story, and so oftentimes, you're dealing with the death of somebody who you built up and cared about and wrote about and loved, and you're going to miss them. And then the second thing is that it's not just that you must kill that character, it's that you must deal with the emotional fallout of that death for all of the other characters that you also care about and the pain that they're going to feel. So it was a really difficult scene to write, because it wasn't like Will dying at the end of Clockwork Princess, which was also sad. But he was 80-something, and he died in bed with all of his family around him. Like, it's the best kind of death I think you could hope for.
Especially in the Shadowhunter.
Whereas just dying horribly in your blood in front of your entire family is not what you really want. And that was a really, painful thing, I think, to write for me.
Of course, and I mean, the more loved they are, the more significant, and the more that there is fallout.
Right, and the more there's fallout, and the more the death is going to affect everything going forward.
Right. Okay, I'm going to lift it up a little bit here, get away from death. You write really excellent side characters.
Thank you.
They always stand out in my mind. Even Magnus originally was kind of a side character. Did you always know he would become such an important part of the world? I know you didn't know if you'd be writing multiple series, but once you did you plan to really have him be central the way he is?
Magnus, interestingly, even though he was a side character, was the second character that I created after Clary. Weirdly, then came Magnus. And so I always felt like he was more important than the brief appearance he has in City of Bones, but that was all there was time for in that book. And then I always knew I wanted him to, come back and come back again. I always knew he was destined for Alec. That was always a fun thing to set up, with their first meeting and what happens after that. And I think when I started thinking about, it wasn't until I started thinking about Infernal Devices and I thought, and Magnus must be in this, that I realized, wait, Magnus is going to be in everything. Yeah. He just is such a significant character.
Yeah, that's kind of convenient, right?
I was pleased that he was immortal. I was like, he definitely would have been around. No reason he wouldn't have been around. And he's both immortal, he's a grounding presence and also kind of a lightning presence. He's both a party guy, but also has this streak of seriousness and wisdom that's very useful. And I think that it's actually always, at this point when Magnus appears, it's a moment of reassurance. Readers are like, oh, thank God. Magnus will fix this. It's like Dumbledore. Except,
better looking.
Well, and they're both gay wizards, so.
So yours is canonically gay?
What?
Yours is canonically gay.
Yes. Well, bisexual. Let us be fair to Magnus. Yes, canonically bisexual, whereas Dumbledore is, sadly, we have not yet gotten the experience of seeing him really express himself.
Yeah. remember, I think I saw an interview or something where you said Magnus was interesting as well because he's changed over time, right? Like the gap between, you know, the Infernal Devices and Mortal Instruments, I mean, he's kind of a different person throughout, I guess, too, right? Like he's had different experiences, different times when you're checking in and writing him, like...
Yeah, I would definitely say that's true. And actually one of the interesting things about writing, so the next book I have coming out is called The Red Scrolls of Magic, and it's the first book in the series about Magnus and Alec. And so I know I have a million books coming out, it's hard to keep track. We've got 2 coming out in 2019, so we have The Red Scrolls of Magic in April, which deals with Magnus and Alec, and it goes back into their past, and we join Magnus and Alec in City of Fallen Angels. They go on a vacation together, and we don't see them. And I always wanted to go back and like fill in where they were and what they were doing, because they clearly come back from it with their relationship being more serious. And so in Red Scrolls of Magic, we go back in time and we go on that vacation with Magnus and Alec. We see all the stuff that happened, and it was really interesting because I was like, okay, even in the course of the Mortal Instruments and the Dark Artifices, Magnus has changed, and to go back in time is to go back to an earlier Magnus who's kind of a different person than he is now. And definitely half of the book is told from Magnus's point of view, the other half is Alec. But definitely Alec has changed so much. So to go back into Alec when he was younger, when he was more insecure, when he understood, I think, so much less about himself and about Magnus, was a really interesting experience. And I think that's one of the fun things about jumping around in time, is joining your characters at different points of their development, and whether they're immortal or mortal, they're going to be different.
They're definitely one of your most popular ships, I think, Magnus and Alec. What do you guys think? Pretty
Alec?
popular, yeah.
Alec?
So, what's the weirdest pair you've ever seen fans ship together?
I mean, okay.
Or maybe most surprising.
No one's gonna like, okay. This is a truly, okay, Isabel and Church. But Church, to be fair, was a shapeshifter. Oh. So he became human at key moments.
Wow.
But I was like, he's a cat, he's just a cat. I love my cat, but not that way.
If you could ship any character from, let's say, the Dark Artifices with a character from one of your other series, forgetting age and timeline and all that, are there any pairs that, like for me, I think Jace and Emma would have been really hilarious together, like
oh, yeah.
one-upping each other, and like I think they would have been really funny.
I think they're actually so similar that they probably would have eventually driven each other bananas.
Yeah, they like fight a lot.
But they probably would have constantly been trying to like one-up each other and get the last line in and stuff like that. Let me think. I don't know, it's tough for me to kind of think of my characters as being with the people that are different than the people that they are with.
Right.
But, all right, if we're gonna go back in time, maybe, sorry, I'm really bad at this.
I'm sorry. It's
you totally stumped me. Maybe I think Kit and Cecily probably would have gotten along well.
I love Kit. Oh my God, those Herondale boys, I tell you. So I want to kind of switch gears a little. This book is really, or this series rather, emphasizes the fairies a lot. And that's been hard for you. I think you said like you were kind of dreading going there, writing fairies. Why were you kind of scared to write those kinds of characters or go to that world even?
Well, one of my best friends in the world is Holly Black. We love Holly. And she has been writing about fairies for longer than I have been a published author. She is actually, I met her at her book signing for Tybe, one of the first ones that she ever did. And she's obviously, you know, a great master of writing fairies, but for years I made fun of her and fairies, and I was always like, oh, fairies, they can't just say anything straightforwardly. It's never like, I'm tired. They're like, oh, I'm loath to fall upon the green sward, blah, blah. And she was always like, And so I was like, oh, they're so complicated. They're always politicking. They can't lie, but they never tell the truth. They're always misleading. They're such a pain in the butt. And I was like, I have the Silly Queen, and she's already like always, you know, complicating factor. So I don't think I want to do yet more of these fairies. And then for some reason, the story led me in this direction where I was like, oh my God, this is entirely a story about fairies. There's nothing I can do about it. I am cursed. And I lay around being sad, and Holly laughed and laughed and laughed.
Is she super smug about all
She's
this?
so smug. She actually, if you have read Cruel Prince, which is a wonderful book, it is dedicated to me. And the dedication says, for Cassie, who has finally been forced to write about fairies, ha ha ha.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yes, it's touching.
This is for you, Holly. Do you have then a favorite downworld or two, right? Like vampires or warlocks, or is there one that you think you gravitate to, maybe?
I think that if I had to be a downworlder, I would want to be a warlock. And I do have fun writing about them. I think that I would like to live forever, but I don't want to drink anyone's blood.
No.
That seems gross
Valid.
and invasive.
Yeah.
Rude.
Good points.
One might say. So I would prefer to have, and I mean, you know, like Simon lived on animal blood for a long time, but even that seems pretty gross. And also I like the daylight. I'd prefer to be able to go out during the day. And I love the idea of being able to do magic. I think that seems really, I mean, you know, it's like a fantasy that I've had since I was a little kid, is to, you know, experience a fantasy world where magic was real. So I think I would pick being a warlock.
Right, and not as gross, like being a werewolf is kind of hairy, you might
It's a lot
say.
of hair in the drain.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
I mean, yeah, so much work.
I don't want to insult any of the downworlds. I love them all.
Okay, so one of the things that struck me reading this new series was how gross the demons are. Congratulations, they're disgusting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Like, just there was a lot of sea demons, right? Because
Oh yeah, they're really nasty.
Yeah, like they were really repulsive. Congratulations.
Yeah, they're gross.
There was a quote that I read. I think it was in the second book, actually, from Kit, and I'm going to quote it because where Kit said, "Demons seem like the beautiful things of the world had been warped and sickened and made revolting." Is that how you kind of conceive of them? You take something from our world and then make it gross, basically?
Kind of, yeah. Because I think of demons as the ultimate sort of like perversion of things that are good and beautiful, like things that are growing become things that are rotting and dying, and things that are wonderful and beautiful and useful become things that are evil and carnivorous and sickening. So, and what do I hate? I hate giant bugs.
Yep.
You know, so I hate. I don't even like medium-sized bugs. And I remember working really hard to make the sea demons just exceptionally disgusting, because I grew up around the ocean, and there's sort of an interesting phenomenon, I think, about swimming in the ocean. Like, you're out there, you're swimming, you're like, I'm happy I'm in the ocean, and suddenly you think, what's under me? Yeah. Right? Yep, I'm on the page with you. And especially if you're out in the ocean and you're and it's miles down, and you're just under me is the ocean, 5 miles down of darkness filled with weird creatures. What are they? And so I was really drawing on my fear of sort of the uncanniness of things that live in weird, in the bottom of the sea. If you've ever seen pictures of marine biologists have taken of things that we've dredged up from the bottom of the ocean, they are not attractive.
They do not look good out in the light, right?
No, they're clearly not meant to have the light shown on them.
So we were talking just a bit about the setting, LA. You've done New York, London. I think your next historical is going to be in Paris a bit?
Paris and London.
So your settings are really vivid and alive. New York, you really brought to life, and LA too. Is there a favorite location you've written, or?
I think London for me. I love London. It's my favorite city in the world. Always, I get there, I'm just happy. I'm happy all the time. I'm just happy to be in London. I don't care if I'm in line or it's trafficy or it's raining on me. I'm just happy to be here. I think partially because I grew up reading so many books that were set in London that when I get there, I sort of feel like wherever I am, I'm sort of in a place that is connected to the books that I loved. But LA was also really special for me to write about because that's where I grew up. And so it was a way for me to kind of reconnect with the teenager I was when I lived in LA, and what did I do, and what was it like being a teenager in Los Angeles, and what did we do for fun, where did we go? And so I got to recreate a lot of that stuff with Emma and Christina and Julian.
Do you prefer writing real cities or like imaginary, like doing Alicante or even Eden?
I prefer writing real cities. Yeah. Probably most of you have not read Queen of Air Darkness, and that is okay. It's a very long book. But there is a place there called Thule that is like probably my favorite place that I have ever written. I loved everything about it because I think trapped inside me is like a horror writer that wants to get out. So we see that in like the demons and some of the like more gross stuff. And so Thule is an extremely horrific place, and while I would not wish to live there, writing about it was just incredibly enjoyable. So I think, and I have a book series coming out in like a year and a half, I think, called Swordcatcher, which is unrelated completely to Shadowhunters, and it is set in a world that I made up. So a secondary world fantasy, so it's an invented world, and having kind of the pleasure of inventing a world completely is definitely a experience that is really fun in a different way.
And you change, I guess, right? Because you've been in the real world for the Shadowhunters.
Yeah, I've spent so much time writing sort of, magical London, magical Paris, magical New York, magical LA. And I love doing that, but it's kind of fun to also be able to build something.
What about magical Canada?
I see I am in trouble.
Are there Canadian institutes?
Yeah, there are institutes everywhere. So they're definitely Canadian institutes. And I know it's really weird. I end up in random places. Like I've written about Chattanooga. There's an entire story about that in Ghost in the Shadow Market. I've never been there. So I would like to think that I feel like, the Canadian Shadowhunters are kind of waiting for everybody for things to get real bad so that they can sweep in and save everybody. They're just like yeah, you've all screwed this up pretty badly. Yeah, well, we'll be coming.
We'll help you, eh?
Exactly.
Okay, so I think we're gonna head over to crowd questions.
Crowd questions. Okay. So we have someone with a microphone?
Yes.
Great. So if you have any questions, just stick your hand.
So that was the end of the discussion section, and then she had a question section where the audience could ask what they wanted. I didn't manage to catch all of those questions, but I caught a few, so I'll put those in here so you can watch them.
We usually call different kinds of writers plotters and pantsers. So some people are plotters and they lay things out ahead of time and they kind of know where they're going. And then pantsers fly by the seat of their pants. They just sit down, they start writing, and they see where it goes. And honestly, you end up with good books either way, but it is a very personal thing. It depends on what kind of person you are. And I'm a plotter. I like to know where I'm going. So I usually start with characters, like who are they, what are their relationships to each other, and given these characters and these relationships, what kind of story would grow organically from that. And you don't have to do it that way, but you certainly can. I think if you had the opportunity to go back and change your books, you would rewrite a lot of stuff about them, and you can't, so it's very frustrating. And I have gone back and changed small things. When we did our anniversary editions and repackages, it gave me an opportunity to go back in and alter little things in the books just to make them more consistent with each other. But I try not to think too much about like big things I would change because I know that I can't change them. And that way I think lies madness. I think my favorite was Jem and Tess and Will, definitely. So many people had said to me, I hate love triangles, and I was like, no, you don't. You think you do because you've read a lot of crappy ones, and I totally get that, right? And I don't like love triangles either, where the existence of the love triangle makes the people in it act selfish or indecisive or cruel to each other. I don't like that. But I do love a situation in which the love between people is complicated. And so I was like, I'm going to write a love triangle that hopefully people who don't like love triangles will like. And so that was the idea behind the situation in the Clockwork series. And I also thought I'm going to write a love triangle in which everybody gets a happy ending. And I guess we got that with Kieran and Christina and Mark too. just in a slightly different way.
There were a couple of other things she said in the discussion part that I didn't manage to catch, but I found so interesting. So I took some notes while she was talking, and I have them on my phone here. So I'll just share some of the things that she shared because it's cute, and if you like Cassandra Clare, you might want to know this information. So firstly, someone asked if she has a parabatai in real life, which she says she does, and it's one of her best friends since she was 10, and I thought that was really sweet. Next, she said that when she was trying to get City of Bones published way back in the day, she was told that it would be published if she took the Alec and Magnus relationship out of the book. What the F? Good job, world! And then finally, Cassandra Clare was born in Iran, which I had no idea about, but her upcoming series features a Persian protagonist named Cordelia, so she was loosely inspired by her brief childhood influence there. So that's pretty cool. Those are all the fun facts I wrote down that I didn't manage to catch on video. Then came the signing. Because we were in group 3, we only had to wait like 15 minutes. We were allowed to get 2 books signed, and the staff of the store kind of arranged them for you and then led you onto the stage for like your quick little meet and greet. So of course I got my very original copy of City of Bones signed, which was really funny because the pages are like out. And this lady that works there was like, well, that's an ancient copy. And I was like, yeah. So I got this one signed. And of course, Queen of Air and Darkness. Even though I have not read Lord of Shadows or Queen of Air and Darkness yet, I know, shame. But yeah, this was the tour it was on, so it was fitting to me. But as I went up, I was super nervous. And if you guys remember, if you watched my Meeting Victoria Aveyard video, I made such a fool of myself, because in that case, she recognized me from my songs about her series and like our brief social media interaction. So I was gonna go up there all cool and be like, I don't know if you remember, but I made these songs and you liked them. And then she just, before I could even speak, was like, oh my gosh, I know you. So then I was like, so then all semblance of thought disappeared and I made a complete ass of myself. You can watch that video below if you feel so inclined. But anyway, so I was like, I can't be this weird kid again. Like, I gotta make a good impression on Cassandra. But it ended up being very chill. I just went up, she commented on how old the cover was of this book, and then said, oh my gosh, I love your hair, which was the perfect opening because I wanted to compliment her hair because, as you've seen in the video, she has these really cool pink, like under highlight, low light things that look so good. So I was gonna be like, oh my gosh, I love your hair. But then she started by saying, oh my gosh, I love your hair. So then I just got to say, I love yours too. And then we bonded about hair dye, and she asked me, oh, like, is it really hard to keep it that color for a long time? And I was like, nah, you know, it started out like a dark teal and then it goes to this and basically just stays green indefinitely, which she thought was funny. So I made her laugh, which you can see in this clip. I'm such a fangirl, help. So yeah, we had a good chuckle about hair dye and it was great. And then she handed me my books and I went on my way. And it was a beautiful moment. So we just met Cassandra Clare, and she's so pretty and wonderful.
She is, oh my god.
And she said my hair is pretty.
She did. I saw it, it's on film. You'll see it right after this.
And I'm gonna go cry now. I'm fine. I have some Cassandra Clare songs in the works, which I wanted to have released before I met her, just because I've been so in her world the last year, and that would be a nice way to like end the year, and then I could have given them to her on a USB or something, but I haven't had a chance to record them yet. So those will be coming in the future, as well as probably some Shadowhunter book talks and reviews, because of course I've been reading all of them this year for Emma Books Read Along, even though I've been a slacker these last 2 months and I stopped at Lady Midnight, but I'm getting there. That is the time I met Cassandra Clare, finally, after a lot of years. 10 years. Yeah, about 10 years, and it was delightful, and I'm so happy. And I hope you enjoyed this footage. If you were not able to make it out onto the Queen of Air and Darkness tour, then now I hope you feel like you did a little bit. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!